Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you for inviting us to speak on behalf of Frame. It's really nice to be able to chat to people about Frame and the show. So I'm Molly, and I don't know where she is on everyone else's screen, but below me is Savannah. And we are members of Frame, and we also are part of the exhibitions team for Ode to Anna that's currently on at Llantarnam Grange. So for those of you who don't know, Frame Wales is a South Wales-based kind of photographic collective that are focused on promoting and supporting female identifying and non-binary photographers or people working in photography. And with like a focus on people underrepresented within photography in general and in and around Wales and South Wales. So to start us off, Savannah's going to have a very, very quick run through of the kind of origin story of how Frame got together in 2018, I think it was.
Oh my word, that's a long time ago it seems. Yeah, I had to sit and kind of rack my brains at what actually happened and how it came about, because it was something that just happened. I went to a talk that was being held in Cardiff Museum alongside the Women in Photography exhibition that they had on at the time, and it was something that Celia Jackson, the lady who started Frame, organised, and I think she was she was on the speakers alongside Lydia Pang, and they were sharing their experiences of being in the creative industry as women. And after that talk, there was an invite for all those who wanted to find out more about a group that was possibly going to start. We had to wait around in the hallway, and then we went for the people that wanted to. We went upstairs into Cardiff Museum, which I didn't know existed. Beautiful rooms upstairs, and we went into a room that was again stunning, but it had all kind of white male. Well, I guess just men on the walls, and it was quite intimidating almost, just sitting there being watched by all these eyes. And we just spoke about the need for a photography collective or a creative collective that supported women, and that we could get a place that we could get together, share our skills and our knowledge to support others. And things just developed from there. You can see here that one of the pictures is from the talk that I took while I was there, and then the group that were there decided to have their photo taken. It's the starting point for the collective to grow, and I think from there we all went and got lots of coffee and sat down and had a really good chat about what we could offer and how we could put this collective together. And yeah, that's literally where it all started. It was something that was quite surprising, and I remember going home and feeling really inspired by the women that I'd met, and just by the idea of this collective. And from there we had quite a few meetings, again, lots of coffee, to put it all together. So I don't know, when did you join, Molly? Was it soon after?
It must have been, a couple months afterwards, because this talk was one of the events that was going on with the Women in Photography exhibition that was on at the museum. And I missed it because it was about 2 weeks before I moved back to Wales from my master's degree. So I think I saw Instagram, the wonders of social media, actually. I think I saw a couple of Instagram posts about the collective, and I was like, oh, what's that? That looks very, very interesting. And a lot of the stuff I've been researching was a lot about women in photography. So I was very, very much intrigued. And I really enjoyed the idea, the general aims of Frame, which is to kind of raise the profile of work of the members and that they've created through exhibitions. So we have an example here of our launch event that was in Diffusion Festival, maybe half a year later, the April of the following year, which was, I think, was most of the members' work. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the launching starting point of that. But it wasn't just photographers that the collective wanted to support. It was also people working within photography, so curators, exhibition assistants, researchers and writers. So not only do we have exhibitions, which we have another one here, which was the most recent one before Ode to Anna, which was Every Woman at the Zenith. And we have a lovely photograph here of Celia doing a little tour of the show, which I think was actually on during, right before and right after COVID happened. So that was, so a lot of people got to see it, I think, before COVID happened, but then that was a bit of a shame.
I managed to get down and see it just before, and it was a beautiful space. And to see one of the members, Tess Seymour's work, the prints that she produced at the size was stunning. Everyone's work looked wonderful in the space. It was a lovely. If we could, collaborate with them again, it'd be wonderful. But yeah.
Yeah. And then some talks as well. This is, again, Celia doing a talk during Diffusion Festival for the Women's Work Symposium. And then we've also got currently the Fikas and In Conversations, and hopefully talks in the future for more research-based work, but also just general artist talks for people to kind of go more into behind the scenes of what they're doing and the kind of questions they want to ask with their work. So pre-COVID, we were going to talk about how we functioned as a collective before COVID happened, which these lovely photographs demonstrate. And as Savannah said before, we drank a lot of coffee, and we had a lot of meetings for idea generation, discussing people's work and peer support of each other. And then these kind of ideas would then roll into exhibitions or events that people wanted to start and do. And then during COVID, there was a very big shift of how everybody's general day-to-day workings were happening in and changing during this horrible time. So beforehand, we were quite active, and there was a lot of ideas and things we were wanting to do, and then that all got put on hold. Everybody's day-to-day jobs had to transform. Everybody had to work from home. Everybody was dealing with being sick, bereavement, burnout, and Frame essentially is voluntary based. So that did get slightly put on hold for a while, whilst everybody was kind of giving themselves time and being kind to themselves during this kind of very rocky, very unprecedented times, as the phrase goes. So it was good to have this exhibition, Ode to Anna, as a focus point, because it was discussed prior to COVID. And it was something I really wanted to push to keep doing, but nobody knew what was going to happen. So when we started kind of getting the ball rolling with this exhibition, when we started realizing that maybe in the future exhibitions could happen, that there was something for us all to focus on. So that leads us nicely on to Ode to Anna, the exhibition that's on now at Llantarnam Grange. So I'm just going to have a quick chit chat about the background of the exhibition and kind of how this came to be. So like I said before, the collective isn't just looking at supporting photographers. We're also aiming to support researchers and historians. And like I quickly mentioned to Savannah then, I joined Frame just finishing a master's in photographic history. And I've always been very much interested in alternative processes. And one of the modules we did during my master's degree was museums and exhibition design. And we were given this task of design an exhibition about anything you want. There was no monetary limit. You could just do whatever you pleased. And I was like, fantastic. I really like cyanotype, so let's focus on that. And they also said maybe pick an anniversary. That's always a good place to start as well. So I thought, okay, so this would be 2018 at the time. So I said 2021. that's 150 years after the passing of Anna Atkins. Let's do a kind of celebratory exhibition about the cyanotype process. And as you can see by this really terrible drawing of mine, I wanted to kind of focus on science and industry and kind of the artistic applications of the process. And I don't know if any of you can see that I really went wild with the money, because I got some Rauschenbergs in there, I got some Anna Atkins pieces over here. So this was kind of like this really, really rough initial idea a long time ago. So then when we got the CENIF exhibition up, we started having an idea about what do we want to do next. And a lot of the people within Frame were not only working in digital photography or like wedding photography, but a lot of people working in alternative processes. And one of the things I personally felt was that there was a lack of representation of photographic history, but most specifically women's photographic history and alternative processes within exhibitions in Wales. Even though Wales is like plentiful in both of those areas, because I know tons and tons of people working in alternative processes. And I thought it was such a shame that I didn't get to go to any shows that had like a bountiful amount of these pieces. So I went back to this original idea and celebrating Anna Atkins and using that as kind of a way to also celebrate alternative processes within Wales. So we wanted to celebrate Anna Atkins and the impact of her legacy on photographic history and general practice. But I wanted to broaden it out a little bit instead of just botanicals and cyanotypes. So in the very initial beginnings of writing that brief, we got the brief together and we got 4 of us on the exhibitions team, which was myself, Tess Emily Seymour, who at the time was working at the Gate as the exhibitions assistant, but is now working at Oasis, and Faye Griffiths and Savannah. And this is a lovely little photograph when we actually were allowed to meet up with people after when lockdown number 1 started to be a bit more loose with the rules. So we'd go over the applications together in the initial meeting and to visualize the exhibition within the space, which was just nice to be able to go into a museum and gallery space where we weren't able to do that before. And it was very strange, I think. You can see we're all wearing masks and it was just a very, very strange time. But it ended up with the application, we actually ended up with a really big range of applications. And you'll see, if you've been to the show, you'll see that it's a range of topics and processes. We have many representations of the cyanotype process and botanicals, but they've been expressed in multiple ways and like varying forms. So it gives a much more diversity to what's being on show. So some examples of those pieces, if my PowerPoint doesn't want to freeze. Oh, here we go. There we go. Cool. So we've got some digital botanical work by Jane Nesbitt, where she used her walks on, where was it? Chepstow?
Coastal Path.
Where was it?
Yeah,
coastal.
All different coastal walks while she was in lockdown, and I think it was a case that she would collect samples of different flowers that she saw growing, and she was amazed by the variety. When she came into the gallery recently, she was telling me that she was amazed by the variety that were available, just even on her kind of daily walks, and how her husband and her would collect things and kind of really quickly take them home in little vials of water, just so they didn't kind of die before she photographed them. But then I think Molly, hasn't she's photographed them and then digitally edited to get that really bright white background.
Yes, she's zoomed up very, very, very closely to whiten it up, but I really like these ones because they're so specimen-like the work of Anna Atkins, but they're all so different and really represent what was going on during lockdown with this kind of like letting the wildlife grow and letting wildflowers grow and kind of take over these, I want to say take over these natural spaces, but they live in these natural spaces. They just get chopped down. Yeah, reclaiming, that's a very, very good word, yes. And on the other side here, we've got the botanical photo montages from the collection Call Me By Your Familiar Name by Kate Mercer, who worked in multimedia photographically. So she scanned in these memorial flowers and then has made them into bouquets of flowers, which are a huge series of A1. Are they A1 size prints?
I think, yeah, but two of them are, and then it's a meter by a meter by meter. One is like, they're huge. They are stunning, yeah. And as soon as you walk in, like even from where they've been positioned, due to the curation, as soon as you go through the one door in the gallery, it's just, they are, yeah, absolutely beautiful, printed onto aluminium, I think. So yeah, they take pride of it.
So you can see that we still got a range of botanical work, but very, very different in process and execution. And then on the next slide, if it will let me go on to the next slide, there we are. We can see a few different ranges of processes that were part of the show. So we've got cyanotypes, and we have cross-processing of petroleum printing and chemigrams by Trish. So these cyanotypes are double exposures from the series of You Have to Be Beautiful to Hate Yourself by Tess Emily Seymour, who was part of the exhibition team. Again, this is a very, very poignant collection that kind of very much represented a lot of what was going on in lockdown as well. So these kind of like intensities of being around like the same people all day, every day, and only being able to leave like the house for half an hour a day, and the kind of intensities that her friendship group had already, and how lockdown kind of multiplied that intensity, I guess. And these relationships are then explored in these double exposures. And she has got, I want to say 12 of these on the show, I think
so. Yeah. There's a really nice range and display of them, and the way she's framed them. Yeah, they're just really kind of intimate on the wall, I think. And you kind of really have to look into them to see those different, the reflections of each of the subjects that she's photographed. Yeah, beautiful.
And then we've got Patricia's work with the single leaves. If you go to the show, you'll actually see pretty much all over all of the marketing stuff for the show. Her Anna Atkins portraits made out of, there was one cyanotype made out of petals or leaves, and then the contrasting portrait using this process. And I think it's really nice to see this very, very solid line of Anna Atkins' influence throughout the show, even in subtle ways. So here you've got this very beautiful and very colourful photograph, even like metallic photograph of or photogram of a leaf, but then it's also very similar to her own cyanotype practice and cyanotypes of British algae, which I really, really, really enjoy about the show. So everybody should just go tomorrow. Just take the day off work and just go. So those are two examples of the different kinds of processes people were using. So that's one of the projects that we've been up to during lockdown. And then the most recent, this was the most recent, I guess, is the website, which was created by Savannah, Megan Winstone, and Lorna Cabell, which was launched on International Women's Day. Would you like to just run through the website for us? I've only got a couple of screenshots here.
Yeah. So basically, the website was really important for us to get off the ground. so that we could showcase everyone's work on, well, every member's work on there, and to share when we were doing Instagram takeovers. There's a section for membership, which we'll talk about a bit later, and just having the gallery of our members really kind of just solidified us as a collective and allowed us to share and get people out there that are part of Frame. And it was a long process, because again, throughout lockdown, we've kind of communication broke down in some parts, just because we had that much going on in everyone's daily lives, and it was harder to organize things digitally, and we had to keep thinking about what times were appropriate. So, obviously we kind of have conversations over Slack to keep everyone updated on what's going on. And the website was originally made by Megan Winstone. She's become incredibly busy with her photography practice, so I offered to take it over and just kind of get it off the ground for our launch, which includes sending out newsletters as well, which we sent out on International Women's Day, which was perfect launch day. And so yeah, if you head over to that, you'll basically be able to read our mission statement as well, and it just gives you a feel for who we are, and I think the graphics are lovely. I mean, Megan did a fantastic job before I kind of took it over and just finished it off, and Lorna has also been, Lorna works with us primarily, well, she's done a bit of everything, hasn't she, Molly?
Yes, she's like translator, admin, photographer.
So, yeah, she's a bit of everything, and that's wonderful. That's what we love. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how it turned out, and obviously our Instagrams and socials match up to it nicely, and it's just nice to keep people informed on the of things that are.
And also shout out to Phil Scully, who did all the branding for Frame as well. So shout out to him. I don't know if he's here today, but I will let him know that I gave him a little shout out. And it would be nice to see him. It would just be nice to meet up with everybody after, not back to normality, but post-lockdown, as Sharon McGill said to me in a fika the other day. So yes, that moves us on to post-lockdown plans. So we did all of this during lockdown, which I think was a feat in itself. Was difficult, especially as I moved to. Not many people would actually know this, but I moved to Sweden during second Welsh lockdown. Very, very last minute decision on my part, but half of the exhibition planning and decision making and meetings and everything like that has been when I've been over here. So that was one thing in itself, but Wales and the world kind of are starting to come out of lockdown now. So some of the ideas and plans for the future of Frame, we have no quite immediate plans yet, because things change, guidelines change. Nobody really knows when people are going to be able to hug. You guys can hug again now, I think. Isn't that right?
Kind of. Whether you choose to is well, I think
fair enough.
I'm not really sure. It changes every day, and now we've got different things changing in different areas here. I think, it's things that we did before that we really want to start back up again, including our photo jams, which we kind of where everyone would get together in a room and we would bring portfolios, people could come along and just share their work, and it was kind of just like a critique almost, but just really friendly and relaxed with some of our members, just to share experiences and ideas, practice, and our skills with other people, and just to sit down and talk creatively, because I think it can be quite isolating being a creative or an artist. We often work alone, and usually it's only our voices in our heads thinking, is this good or is this bad? So I think it's nice to get together and to be able to share the work that we've been all been doing. At the moment, we're still not 100% sure on when we're going to be able to offer these due to the restrictions. I'm sure maybe as things get a little bit better, we might be able to have some more people in a room, distanced with masks. I don't know. We haven't been able to have any physical events yet at Llantarnam, where the exhibition is on, except for I think one or two workshops with the kids. But we're trying to adapt, and I think that's the main thing this year, is that we've adapted so well, doing things online and really pushing it and staying visible, which has been the most important thing, really. So I've, Molly's Fika talks have been wonderful.
Thank you.
Indira, as Trisha's been saying, I totally agree. Wonderful. So what else? I'm trying to think what else we've decided we were going to work on.
Well, I think I was just wanted to add to your a little bit about the frame photo jams. So each member who wanted to be kind of like a mentor for each session would volunteer, and then people would sign up and bring their portfolios to wherever we decided to hold that particular photo jam that day. But it was also very good for newer members to come along if they wanted to test out doing mentoring, or if somebody had been interested in going into lecturing or that kind of route, or had wanted us to speak to somebody about not even just portfolios. Some people wanted to talk about grant writing, so they would just come along and just ask for advice about things. So it wasn't even just a portfolio review session. It was just about coming and being able to just chat to people for advice in a very friendly and very casual kind of setting, which was also one of the good things about it. So hopefully, once restrictions allow, we can get those up and running in the future. Currently, like when you were saying about digital continuation and presence, is the frame takeovers. So we offer takeovers to anybody who would like them on our Instagram page, and I believe it's for a week or two, depending on how much work you'd like to show. You just email the frame account just asking what slots are available, because I think they get booked up in advance. And then you just share your work and share the kind of practice you're doing. That could be photography, or it could be research you're doing at the moment, or anything like that. But as long as it's photographic based, you're welcome to apply and do a takeover as well. But currently with digital stuff, we've been doing fikas. So these have been casual, half an hour to an hour. They originally started as half an hour interviews, but they've kind of all been about an hour long on a Monday during the Ode to Anna exhibition, just to kind of get to know a little bit more about the artists and a bit more about their background as just artists and people, and a bit more about the work. But one of the things I've really liked about it is I think it's just because I'm very nosy as well, but getting to know the kind of backgrounds of everybody. Because when you, like you said before, being a creative is very lonely, and you do spend a lot of time by yourself. And sometimes, especially during lockdown, there was this kind of bombardment of like productivity and people having to be creative and having to do work. And sometimes you see people out there doing things and you're like, well, how did they get to where they are now? Like, how have they navigated their way into the art world? What was their journey into this kind of area? So I think by just even asking people, how did they even get into photography, is just a really simple way just to say to people, all of these artists within the show have had completely different backgrounds, and they're all in the same show. So it's just been a really nice way to show people that you can come from different backgrounds and you can start photography at many different ages, and you can carry on like learning and doing master's degrees at whatever age. It's never too late to do anything. It's never too early to do anything. You're never stuck in one kind of process. And that was kind of also one of the aims of the show, was to get people thinking about using different experimenting and like different processes, like Savannah was with her big old scanography piece of herself that she had never done before. So these speakers, I think, have been really, really interesting for that. So the first two were on the Llantarnam Grange Instagram page whilst we were doing a 2-week takeover. and then the rest have been on the Frame Instagram page. And I think there's only two left, and I think one of them is yeah, I'm next.
Oh.
I'm next. I am the next interviewee. And then I think Tess is after that. I think after she finishes like her master's hand-ins and things. So very stressful time at the moment for her. But yeah, so we've still got a couple of those going on. And then the show is on up until the 19th of June. Is that correct?
So, yeah. Yeah, so that, I mean, we've had, just I think it's the 19th, yeah. So we've had a lot of positive feedback constantly every day. It's lovely being there, you know, working in Llantarnam and kind of just having people comment on different elements of the show or finding out what their favorite is. And it has brought in a lot of different people, and I think that's great. So I'm really, you know, you should be proud of your, you know, your idea and the curation of it and putting it together, Molly.
Thank you. Thank you. But I would never have been able to do it without the support of Frame. And I don't think I would have ever put the idea forward if it hadn't been with the support of being within that space where people not only were supportive of just being like in a group of female photographers, but being supportive of just broader ideas than just photographic, like just simply photography exhibition kind of ideas, like a bit more like, what else do you think is being underrepresented in photography? What else are you interested in? And I was like, I'm interested in this, and I know a lot of other members are interested in this, so it kind of brings a lot of things together. So I think I don't think I would have gone for it otherwise, and I think there's been a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have gone for if it hadn't been with the support of being within Frame. And I think, again, like it kind of goes back to that kind of idea about being on your own as a creative. And sometimes you just need people to go, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, like just something as simple as that. And you go, oh, okay, cool, some affirmation. And I think, yes, that's all we have planned for the future at the moment, I believe, with Frame. Let's have a look at the time. I didn't time this talk. I thought it was gonna. I thought I was gonna ramble on, so I kind of went through a lot of that information very quickly. So I apologise. But if you've got any questions or would like me to go over anything, I will 1000% go over everything.
Thank you, Molly and Savannah. That was amazing. I know when thinking about future talks and stuff like that, if we could imagine like a dream world where you could do anything you wanted, what would your sort of dreams and hopes be, but individually as part of the collective or just a vision as a group? Like how do you imagine is there room for expansion where you might one day have like a location, or do you something more permanent, or do you guys imagine, is it quite strictly just part of the group and the individuals that sort of bring the identity forward?
I think as a collective, I mean, wild dreams without, you know, with endless funding, like on Molly's exhibition that she drew. I wish funding worked like that. Unfortunately, it doesn't for a lot of, you know, museums and galleries, especially smaller scale museums and galleries. And I think for Frame, it would be amazing if we could grow and grow the inclusivity of Frame and have, I mean, physical space would be wonderful, even if it was just like, you know, just to be honest, right now I would even just be happy with just being able to meet up and have a room and just sit around a table and talk, because that's kind of it, you know, pandemic has gone on and taken so much that even that is a nice dream. But future wise, I think we just got to continue to do what we're doing and put stronger structure in place for Frames so that we can provide, because it is difficult sometimes running the collective because we are volunteers and people have other commitments. Molly, I think we spoke about that last night when we were talking over what we were going to cover in this talk. And you know, it's not without its difficulties, But if we can all pull together and push together for the future, I think, anything is possible.
Yeah, and I think before lockdown, because when you can meet up in person, you always get a lot of like energy from other people being in the same space. So before lockdown, there was a lot of energy to do things. And like during lockdown, I think this is a global thing that everybody's tired. This whole pandemic has just wiped everybody out. And just being able to see each other again and have that kind of energy back is just like again, this is like a whole of kind of like a global thing. But it's just a good thing to have, like, to help with your own creative energy. So I think that would be really great, just being able to meet up. But I think personally, like, sometimes when you just daydream about stuff and you're like, wow, that'd be really cool if that happened one day. I would really just love to see more exhibitions, just like, because we've kind of got the ball rolling with 3 of them now and lots of kind of different ideas with exhibitions. So it'd be really great to see more, even if it was just like 1 or 2 members of like Frame doing like a combined collaborative exhibition, or even like solo exhibitions and things like that. As a like historical researcher, I would love one day in the very, very, very far future to do like a symposium about like photography in Wales and like Welsh photography. Like, because I haven't been in Wales for so long, I wanted to like go to loads of archives and do loads of research, and I wasn't able to do that. And then about 2 days ago, or like last week, I had an email from somebody about they were doing research into representation of women in photography in Wales. And she was just like, oh, do you have any like advice or anything? And I don't have any of my research here, but I was like, okay. And I wrote like an A4 piece of paper of resources just off the top of my head, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot there's so much that can be talked about in Wales, and there's so much that hasn't been researched in Wales. So in the far future, when people can be in a big room together and I can go and check out lots of archives and everybody could go back to researching archives, it'd be cool to do an exhibition or a symposium and an exhibition to go with it about like women in Wales and photography. I think that's just like a thing, something I daydream about.
I think as a curator, I definitely want to curate and host more collaborative and just photography shows in general, because it's just exciting topics, different topics, and mixing different processes together. That's what's been so fascinating about this show, is just everyone's work is so different. And the feedback has been wonderful. And so for me, definitely bigger scale. I mean, I like to kind of just do curate different shows all over, really, and just take it to different places where everyone has the opportunity to see photography and alternative processes. Because at the moment in Cwmbran, I've had a lot of people come in to the gallery that have never really seen, they're not even sure what a cyanotype is, but it's been lovely to share that knowledge with people. So that's, for me, that's a big thing, is sharing the knowledge and just getting it out there to people that might not usually see that kind of work. So that'd be my drive.
It was like me and Dan talking earlier about being on TikTok and making like.
Not on TikTok yet. I've
no.
I was like, we should go on TikTok. I'm like, I'm too old. I mean, I'm not, but I feel like I am too old to tackle TikTok. But who knows? We might.
Well, my twin sister's on it, and she got called an elder the other day. I thought, like, oh my gosh. But I think that's been quite good. Just making videos about different processes and going, here's some accessible, free information for people, which is quite nice. And I think one of the actual other ideas Frame had was to kind of get a blog going for kind of tips or information from people within the group that they could give out to other creatives. So like so one of the ideas I had for that was about not archiving your work as such, but organizing either training or introducing people to the People of Wales collection archive online about like historical photos of Wales, and like using that as kind of like a resource for like inspiration of work, or like using that to upload your own work or your own photographs or your own events as historical and like archival items. So I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of their work, you know, is important to the history of Wales and is important, like especially so much history is very white and very male, and one of the aims of Frame is to heighten the representation of like underprivileged groups. So things like that, like things that would help exposure and help add to these kind of histories, as well as contemporary representations as well, I think would be really useful. Yeah. Sorry, nerding out on history there.
That sounds really interesting. And what you were saying about your response to that lady who was looking for resources about women photographers in Wales. I mean, I would love that resource to be public, because like just even like my entry into photography was so not like, I didn't expect to be here, you know, or a photographer. And then it's like you realize that that's what you're entering. And then it's like you hit a wall and you have to like educate yourself about the whole industry and the system and how it works if you want to like stay a part of it. And especially to Wales, that would be really interesting. Be amazing to see that produced with like Frame. Yeah.
And I think it's important to have like, I think people, especially with the whole pandemic, there's been a lot of discussion about accessibility. And like the email I sent that person the other day was literally just like a stream of consciousness of going, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember that. And one of the things on it was just like, I'd been doing some research into Mary Dilwyn last year, I think it was. And when I was doing research into her, I was at the National Library and I came across this, it was like a zine, but it was like this tiny little pamphlet made by this women's group as part of the Royal Photographic Society. And it was basically a list of directories of photographers that were based in Wales in 3 different counties from like 1880 to 1920. And because I was there, I just went through and counted all the women. And there was like 50 women working as photographers in Wales during that time. And I was like, why? Like, I've never heard of any of these people.
Quite a lot.
And yeah, and I was just like, you hear about like a lot of, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of the discourse in Welsh photographic history is based around like the documentary photography side of like Wales, but you don't really hear a lot about the kind of industry and the kind of day-to-day photo studio owners. So I just was really shocked that there was 50 women owning studios during that time. I think a lot of them took over from their husbands when the husbands went off to the First World War. But because that wasn't digitized and I only just came across it by accident, like I would never have known about that. So it's also kind of about finding these resources and trying to make them accessible to other people, so other people know that Wales also has a Welsh, like a women's photo history, as well as like representing contemporary history. For contemporary artists.
Definitely needs to be a new project for you, because I would
follow
that.
Yeah.
So you gotta get on that now. You've told us.
Yeah, I want to know who these people were, and if they had secret practices. Did they experiment on the side?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. Are there any other questions or any sort of comments from anyone else in the chat? I think everyone's welcome. Or do you want to finish up, Molly?
Oh no, I completely forgot. I just added like these 2 little slides at the end just to say, this is Savannah. This is her lovely new headshot. This is her website, and this is her piece in the show. And then that was just me, my headshot, my website, and my piece in the show. And that was it. I was trying to find the stop share button. That was it. Okay, I'm just gonna pop. Shall I just stop share? I'll stop that now.
Yeah.
There we go. Cool.